And we are back. Part two of the Chaos League. We got a 12-team dynasty, IDP as well, two tight ends. We've had a great start. I think you're spot on with your ranking so far, 12-7. I think this is where you start to stumble a little bit, though, Chris. I think you really nail the bottom tiers. I think you struggle a little bit with 5 through 2 usually.
Well, we're going to see here. I mean, I think I would sort of agree that the middle tier is where I struggle a little bit, kind of separating those middle teams. Usually there's very little separating that middle tier, but let's see what happens here.
All right, I will be the ultimate judge and jury of whether you got this thing right or not. All right, let's check out number 6, Chris. We're heading on down to XRP here. XRP at number 6, which is where it appears he finished last year as well. And we know this is where you don't want to finish ever in Dynasty, and you've got him penciled in again. We've got Josh Allen, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, Mike Evans, Adam Thielen. We've got Taysom Hill and Dallas Goedert at tight end. Samaje Perine, Tony Pollard, and Jalen Hurts. On the bench to speak of, we got Alexander Madison, Cordero Patterson, Chase Claypool, John Mechie, worth a mention as well. Mike Gesicki is a guy that you like as well this year, Chris. Taxi Squad's got nothing to speak of at all. We've got 110 and 202 in this year's draft to add to the stable. I like this team a lot, Chris. We know Taysom Hill's going to score 30 points a night, so I don't know if maybe you overlooked that, but it's a good team here, Chris. Maybe on the backside of its, abilities and the position players, but geez, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. I don't know how many times we've seen that little duo.
I mean, Matt, it's a good quality team, no doubt about it. It's a good quality team, but I think we're going to see that we really kind of start to take a step up. Now, don't forget we had not much talent here on our bottom tiers. There's a lot of talented teams left to show, and I think there's a couple holes here that concern me, and that's Adam Thielen, that's Taysom Hill, as much as you love him. I mean Samaje Perine, as much as we both love him. I mean, kind of a question mark here. So, that's why I've got him down here. He doesn't have the QB3. His best bench player, I guess, is Chase Claypool. He doesn't really have the bench. So I mean, listen, I think you peg me for a struggle here. I think it's a good team, but I think it's flawed, has some flaws to it. And I think we're just going to straight up see better. But I like the team. I mean, you said you don't want to finish sixth, and but I think there's enough upside here where like this team could finish top three. He's got Allen and Hurts. He's got the upside, to be basically beat anybody in the playoffs. I think I just kind of want to keep riding this team and see where I am after week 8. I give this team 2 months and see where I'm at before I do anything, because there's definitely upside here, but I just have a few more flaws than the teams ahead of them. That's all.
Yeah, you make a great point. We haven't seen a ton of talent yet, and there's going to be plenty of talent left in this top 5. So you make a good point, and I'll reserve judgment till I see it. And more listen to you talk. There are some holes on this team, Chris. It's not a complete team. I love these two quarterbacks, man. When I say that we hardly ever see that, I don't know if we've ever seen it in any show that we've done so far this year, or really no one's leaving startup drafts with those two guys. That's for sure. It's not an overly deep team, as you mentioned here, Chris. When I look at this pick of 110 and 202 with this team, Chris, I wonder if I like to make a move here for another veteran with each of these guys, just to add as more depth pieces. We both don't love this draft, although with this team here, 110 might give you the top tight end in this draft. 202 might give you the second or third best tight end in this draft. And I think we could use a little refresher at that tight end 2 spot. So I'm hesitant. Which way would you go with it, Chris? Stick and pick and aim for a tight end, or do we just go and get that bankable talent at the position player spots?
Yeah, I want to go after the position player spots here. I don't want these picks. I mean, I've been pretty consistent, in our drafts and in previous leagues. I just want to get off these late round picks and these early second round picks. I couldn't be less interested. I would go ahead and go buck yourself about Chris Godwin, see what the price is there. I think 110 for Chris Godwin sounds pretty good to me. I think that's a reasonable deal. And then I'd figure out what to do with the 202. And just figure out somebody to get with that. And I think it's doable. So I want to go after the position players. I'm just completely not interested in that part of the draft. So anything I could do to get off of there and get some productive talent is what I would do.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you there, Chris. I think that's a smart play other than doubling up on Bucks. But your point is well received. Just get somebody in that range for the 110. But I mean, when do you get a tight end too? I mean, I joked a little bit about Taysom Hill. I really don't think he's the guy. But when do you ever get a tight end in a league like this when you've got a decent tight end class and you've got 2 picks in the range that they typically go? That's the only thing that gives me pause that may want to hang out and hold on to those picks to see what comes of those 2 picks.
Oh, ye of little faith in Mike Gesicki. He's gonna be productive. I'll tell you that. I mean, I think you go get that tight end too, to answer your question, in week 6, and you just buy some cheap guy who's randomly scoring some points, and you call it a day. Those guys pop up every single year, and they'll do it again. So that's what I would do. I would just go buy a guy in week 6.
All right, Chris, top 5. Number 5, we've got Can Guard Matt. Can Guard Matt. We got Herbert, Henry, Barkley, Jefferson, Allen, Kelsey Pitts, Jamal Williams, Mike Thomas, and Brock Purdy. Guys on the bench worth a mention. We've got no other quarterbacks. Wish we did. We've got Javonte Williams, Leonard Fournette. We'll see where he ends up. I don't think his career is over. We got Valdez Scantling, Darius Slayton as well. Kenny Galladay. Is his career over, Chris? Yes or no?
Yes.
Like not on a team ever?
Like, I think he's maybe gonna. I mean, I think he might sign with somebody as some sort of like, free agent signing and be the fourth or fifth wide receiver. But in terms of meaningful playing time, it's over.
Oh man, that's sad. That was the fastest crash I think I've ever seen.
I hear you.
All right, we do have Sam Howell down here on the taxi squad, Chris, which may give us a little bit of help at quarterback that we could be desiring if Brock Purdy is not that guy. As far as picks, we got nothing to speak of at all. 5'11 and 602. I like this team here, Chris. I wish it were a little bit deeper. I want to see what happens with Javonte Williams and his health, but oh boy, this could be a really good team here, Chris.
It's got some serious potential. I mean, no doubt. I mean, look at this Kelsey Pitts tight end duo. I mean, boy, oh boy, what an advantage in a league like this. And you still got Justin Herbert anchoring your squad. Listen, I'm using my entire 2024 draft, if that's what it takes, to go get a quarterback that I can play for the next 2 years, because I think that's the window for this team, is this year and next year. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, how I can get a quarterback here, push Brock Purdy as to make him my QB3. Hopefully he starts, or I can mix and match. I don't know if it's Aaron Rodgers, if it's Matthew Stafford, if it's Derek Carr, who we saw earlier. I have to figure out a way to get a quarterback, and I have to figure out how to make that work, because I think my window is very much this year and next. And beyond that, I would not expect this team to be competitive. Age is not on its side. So, I mean, that's what I'm going to do. I've got to go get that quarterback. And, I'll run with, Michael Thomas and Jamal Williams and, Javonte Williams if I need to. I've got some pieces here that I can plug in the flex spots and I can make it work, but it's not going to work if I don't get that quarterback.
Man, I've got to keep that 24 first in the holster, I think, as long as I can, because we're going to have to go shopping, week 9, week 10, week 11, something like that to tighten things up a little bit. And the problem is I'm not seeing a move for that quarterback, Chris. I think all the guys you mentioned are all the guys that he would want, along with Kirk Cousins as well. And I think all of those guys are more expensive than a second and a third next year. I'm struggling to see those pieces. And again, not looking at defense here, just looking at the offense, taxi and picks. I just don't see what that thing looks like in an attempt to go and get those guys. It's a struggle for me here. And what's the play for you here? I don't want to back off any of these starters. I think I got to ride these guys.
The only thing I could really think of here is a potentially solid play would be to move off of Justin Jefferson or Kyle Pitts, just drop down a tier, okay, and get an extra piece, get that second or third piece, just to give yourself a little bit, more solid lineup or a little bit more maneuverability. Maybe it's, two or three moves, but that's really the only thing I could think of here. And you hate to drop down from the studs, but if Justin Jefferson can get you, gosh, Justin Jefferson can get you Steph Diggs or Tyreek Hill plus another quality piece like a God, I'm trying to think. I mean, Justin Jefferson for just random names here. I don't know, Nick Chubb and Tyreek Hill. I mean, how's that? That makes him better. The value may not be there, but it makes his team better. I would think a deal like that.
Well, here's the thing, Chris. I mean, if Brock Purdy's the guy, and that's a big if right now, I feel comfortable rolling him out there, as crazy as that is to say. But if that's not the case, I've got the deal right here, Chris. Nightmare on Al Street, who we had ranked, it was like 9 or 10, I think. We had him at 9.
And
He's
could have
got
been lower. Yeah.
and could have been lower. He's got Darren Waller and Derek Carr. Is that for? I'm thinking Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, the guy that has to go. Darren Waller, Derek Carr, and maybe oh God, there's nothing else on this team.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a tiny bit light. But again, that's sort of the deal we're both kind of looking at is that, trade off one of these studs, drop down, and get yourself two pieces that can fill the holes. I mean, he's kind of hamstrung by not having picks, but I think push comes to shove, you try and figure out a deal, whether it's with Nightmare on Elm Street or somebody else, to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak.
all right, I've got it. I've added the pieces to it, Chris. My 2024 first and Kyle Pitts for Waller, Derek Carr, and Steph Diggs.
I don't hate it. Now I think we got something here.
I think that
It's
difference between that talent that I mentioned before and then the first and the Diggs, I think that gets me where I want to go.
I think that's pretty good. I do. I think that's pretty good. Um, if I'm Nightmare on Elm Street, I take it all day. Um, I think that's pretty good. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I think both sides have to take. I mean, I really like that for this team as well. Something to consider, right? Maybe that's just the tent poles for it, and you guys kind of hash out whatever you think needs to be added on each side. But I think that's getting us into the ballpark. All right, Chris, top 4 here. So far, 5 is better than 6, in my opinion. So you've done well so far. But man, I've seen 2 really good teams in the top half of the league. Let's get to power market number 4. Chris, this was our league champ last year, and it's who you had winning the league that we did last night, if I remember correctly. So let's see what he's got in this league. We've got Danny Dimes, Najee Harris, Ramondre, Amari Cooper, Ty Hill, Evan Ingram, and Juwan Johnson, Brandon Ayuk, Joe Mixon, and Geno Smith. Guys on the bench, we've got Trey Lance and Aaron Rodgers. We've got Tannehill and Darnold as well. We've got Zeke, Jerome Ford, Jarvis Landry, Tyler Lockett, Austin Hooper, Zach Ertz as well. So we've got a little bit of depth, not an amazing group, but serviceable guys you can play. Nothing on taxi. We've got 108, 210, 201 as well. Extra third next year, a bunch of thirds this year. I don't know if it has the top end talent of what we just saw, Chris, but this is a solid team here. I like it here in this slot.
Yeah, I think it's just really solid throughout. And I think the difference, between this team and the teams that we like the upside below him, but I think the difference here with this team is I like the depth and the ability to navigate bye weeks with this team. And, based on last season, he won the whole thing. he's got the upside, that, maybe it doesn't show on paper, but, you know, I think his team just looks very solid throughout, and that's sort of what drew me to it. Um, I hate to put defending champs unless they really look awful, lower than the top four, top five, and so that's why I've got him here. I just think he's just a very solid team with the ability, with fairly quality depth here. It's just two nights in a row you failed to mention Rashad Bateman as well as a quality depth piece. I like Rashad Bateman, Matt. So I think he's got quality depth at every single position, including tight end. With Zach Ertz here. And even Jelani Woods and Austin Hooper, I think, are interesting guys as well. So I think he's got depth everywhere, and I think he's got a lot of points he's going to score in the starting lineup fairly consistently. So I've got him here at 4. I think there's 3 teams that are better than him, but I'm comfortable with him here at 4.
Chris, I'm never going to mention Rashad Bateman as quality depth. I mean, just count me out all the way on here. I'll tell you who I do like, Chris, is Juwan Johnson as tight end too. I think that's going to be a nice little play this year. We started to see in spurts last year what we could get from him. I think we're going to see a step forward this year. Really a big fan of his as we head into this year. Boy, Chris, these quarterbacks, oh boy, I am going to stay up all night with those two. I know we could throw Aaron Rodgers. Tannehill for me is toast. He's like a QB3, QB4. So I like the position he's in with this roster. And then Trey Lance, what are we going to get from him? I'd love to see Zeke Elliott end up somewhere to help me sleep a little bit better. I don't know. Could this team afford to consolidate maybe a little bit or do so cautiously?
I think he could. I would take the chance and consolidate, especially with the picks he's got here. He's got, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks. In the first, whatever it is, 25, 26 picks of the draft. I mean, I don't think it's an overly deep draft, but at least I've got a lot of shots there. So I think he could afford to consolidate a little bit, and I try to do that if I could. I don't even know what that looks like. Maybe it's quarterback. Maybe you go after a better quarterback here. You package some things together. Trey Lance gives a team who wants to take a shot some upside to take a shot on. So I try and consolidate here. I don't see why not. I think, like I said, I think you have the depth everywhere, so you can afford to do it. And we've seen plenty of teams that don't have the depth that do need extra pieces. So I'd go for it. I don't even have a target player or position that I'd go after, aside from upgrading the quarterback. But I mean, that's always kind of difficult to do. So, but I would just try and take the upgrade where I can if I could consolidate.
And I think with his picks at 108 and 201, Chris, we don't advocate for this often, but I think we stick and pick there because I think this is a team that if he could hit on one or both of those picks, this is a team that could really build out a franchise, build out something that's sustainable over a number of years, to make himself competitive for a while. So let's see what we get at 108. Let's see what's available at 201. Could that be a solid wide receiver and a good tight end there at 201? I think that's in the realm of possibilities. And I think I strongly consider that with this team because he's got his starting lineup pretty much etched in stone. Let's bring in some young guys here to try to build this thing out a little bit longer. So good team here by Power Mark yet again. Top 3 here, Chris. We mentioned them before. Time to see him again. We've got B Lynch. B Lynch here at number 3. Remember, that's the one that we were projecting to be a little bit lower. Why can't I find him on our sheet here, Chris? There he is. Pacheco Self. He changed his name recently. We've got Joe Burrow, Isaiah Pacheco, Deontay Foreman, DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Pat Freiermuth, and Cole Kmet, Juju, CeeDee Lamb, and Trevor Lawrence. Guys on the bench, there's Kirk Cousins. We got Antonio Gibson. We've got Al Jair. We've got Paris Campbell. We've got nothing else to speak of there for offense. Taxi squad's got nothing for my money. We've got 101, 107, 111, and 112. Hot mama, Chris. We've hit the jackpot in picks for this year. I was about to say we're a little bit light with this team, Chris, but alas, you came through with some studs on the back end. Talk to me here.
Yeah, we've I mean the 101, you know, you just can't overlook it, right? Just plugging Bijan Robinson into this roster, into the starting lineup for Deontay Foreman, push him to the bench, and oh boy, things are looking up here. The question for me with this team is, I would do everything I can to trade 111 and 112 to try and move up to 106 if I could do it. I don't know that it's going to be possible, maybe light, but that's a deal I would happily do. I'd give up a second next year too if I have to give myself both Robinson and Gibbs plus 107. Or however it works out. I mean, I want to trade up to get Gibbs and Robinson out of this draft. You may have to go, I guess, go up to 5 to do that, potentially. So, whatever I can do to do that is what I'm going to do, because I'd love to come away with both those guys. But if not, I mean, listen, you're going to be taking a lot of shots at wide receiver at 7, 11, and 12. So, I think this team's just in really good shape with all those picks being added. The top end of the lineup's fantastic, in my opinion, with Lawrence, Burrow, and Kirk Cousins, the perfect QB3. I mean, DJ Moore and T. Higgins, very solid wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb, obviously a stud there. I think it's just a really well put together team. I think the upside is tremendous. And I think his window is extremely long here to be competitive.
I love this team here, Chris. Do I think it's the top team? No, I don't think so at all. Again, which is why you have my things ranked appropriately. I think this team is a team I would never want to play. Consolidating these picks to move up. Would you say you want to get to Jahmyr Gibbs?
Yeah, I'd love to do that if I could. I mean, I guess he's got to be 5, right? I mean, he could be 6, depending. If JSN goes at 5.
Yeah, either one, right? To try to get up there and get in there. We like Pacheco. We don't love him. So running back is obviously a little bit thin here after we slot our guy Bijan Robinson in there, and then your guy Antonio Gibson could be the duo. And if we can't get all the way up there. Yeah, I think you're right about consolidating picks. I don't want to be dealing in this back end here unless you try to add a couple of tight ends here at 11 and 12. I think that's great move there to get up there in that draft to try to add a little to consolidate a little bit. He's got the quarterback situation. The wide receiver is really something nice. Oh man, Chris, Freiermuth and Cole Kmet, that scares me a little bit. I mean, tight ends, we know they all stink. And if there's no premium here, then we should just forget about it, even though it's 2 tight ends. And after we saw Pitts and Kelsey on the same team and not even a top, I don't think they were in this show yet or this particular show. So they were a bottom half team. So I guess it's going to be as competitive as anybody with the tight ends. I like this team, man. It's super young. This team is going to be very good for a very long time.
Yeah, I'm good with those tight ends, man. Like, they're clearly couple notches below, but I think they're fine. As far as tight ends go, so I'm good with that. I think the upside's really high on this team. I think this year is going to be the start of a potential juggernaut here. He's just got to make the right picks and do the right things with these picks, and I think it's going to be, wheels up for this team starting this year.
Wow, it's wild, Chris. We've already seen Joe Burrow and Terrence or Trey. Oh my God, Trevor Lawrence together, and then we saw Hurts and Allen. We haven't seen Mahomes yet, have we?
No.
All right, more Mahomes. Maybe he's coming up right now with it's all ogre now at number 2, which means we have Chino Brown at number 1. Let's talk about ogre right now at number 2. There's old Patty boy. Patrick Mahomes, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, Pittman, McLaurin, Irv Smith, TJ Hawkinson. I like that duo right there, Chris. Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and Tua. Wow, great combo there as well at quarterback. Very good stuff. Down here on the bench, we've got Kyler Murray. That's a nice little QB3. We've got Jerick McKinnon as well. Cortland Sutton, Hunter Renfrow, Tyler Boyd, Dulcich at tight end. Taxi squad's got nothing to speak of. No picks, but who cares, Chris? This team's loaded. This is a very, very good team. I might go as far as saying we might be kind of injury proof and any sort of catastrophe proof.
I mean, I wouldn't quite go that far. but yeah, I mean, it's a really good team. He's very solid throughout. It's hard, to poke a hole in this team. It's just really really solid throughout. Mahomes and Tua, you gotta love that. Christian McCaffrey, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, it's just so loads and loads of talent here. It's gonna score a ton of points. I mean, like I said, I think it's a tier of the top two or three. It may just be a tier of two, depending on how our number three team spends his picks. But I think number three is kind of maybe if this is tier one, I think it's a 1A between two and three. So I really like this team throughout. It's just so solid at every position. Tons of upside here. Not a whole. I mean, there's not a whole lot to add. He doesn't really have the picks. What you see is what you get. I'm not making any moves with this team. I think this is another team I think that has a nice, good, solid 3-year window. I think here, depending on how Taylor and McCaffrey ease into the latter half of their career. But I think this team is loaded, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
No, this team is great. If I could pick any team to take over, if I had to, it'd be this one right here. I think it's going to be really, really good. And like you said, it is what it is. The guys on the bench, when I'm saying it's catastrophe proof, those are guys that I'm okay throwing in there. Obviously, putting a Tyler Boyd instead of a Christian McCaffrey is disastrous. But I like those depth pieces. Those are the types of guys I love having on the bench where I can, make sure that my starting lineup is consolidated and solidified. And I think this team has that in spades. So really, really good team. Let's see what number one has. There's no good quarterbacks left from what we've seen so far. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, Chris. Let's see who we got. Like I said, we've got Chino Brown at number one. He finished, fifth last year. He's got Lamar Jackson. Yes, forgot about him. And Jared Goff at Superflex. We got J.K. Dobbins, Austin Eckler, Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith, George Kittle and Mark Andrews, Deontay Johnson and Jerry Jeudy. Guys on the bench worth a mention: Kenny Pickett and Matthew Stafford. Love to see him get off of one of those guys. Eli Mitchell, Devin Singletary, Allen Robinson, Alan Lazard, Brandon Cooks, Dalton Schultz. Very good bench here as well, Chris. Taxi squad's got nothing at all. No picks to speak of until the third round. Very good team, Chris. I'm going to say you got it right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's debatable between one and two as well. I mean, at the end of the day, I just thought that, Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff, I thought was about equal to the other team's quarterbacks. They were Mahomes and Tua. I think it's about equal there, maybe a slight edge to the other team. But at the end of the day, I think the tight ends here is really the big difference, right? We've got George Kittle and Mark Andrews compared to Irv Smith and TJ Hawkinson. I think, as much as I like, Irv Smith, Andrews and Kittle are just a clear notch above Hawk and Smith. So, that was kind of the tiebreaker for me. And I think the rest of the roster is just really, really good as well. Maybe you have some health concerns with J.K. Dobbins, maybe some slight concerns with Austin Eckler. But I just think this team is in line to score a ton of points this season. And I like his depth. I think a tiny bit better than our previous team as well. So, that in the end, that's put them at one. But I think one and two are probably a notch above three. And those three teams are a notch above 4, 5, 6, 7. So I think the tiers kind of broke themselves out nicely with this team. Again, if we can get off of Kenny Pickett and get a good quality return for him, I'm good with that. Stafford as well, I think, if I can do that. Either one, I'd be fine moving off of just to get a decent return on. But I'm not going to force that deal either, because I think this team, sometimes you can never have enough quarterback depth. And I'd be hesitant, with Lamar Jackson's injuries in the past, to kind of just jettison off a quarterback unless I'm getting a good deal on it.
Yeah, I don't say this often, Chris, but I don't think there's anything I would do with this team. I'd love to try to upgrade on Deontay Johnson and Jerry Jeudy if possible. I don't really know what that looks like. I like the depth, but I only like them as depth pieces. I don't like to have to put these guys into a starting lineup. I think I'm very quick to get off my 2024 picks in order to do that. You know, maybe it's Judy in my first for a significant upgrade there, or even Deontay Johnson, whose value is falling tremendously. I'd like to see him score a little more points to boost his trade value, but you know, this team's got all the pieces. I think it's a great little mix. It's young for the most part here. Chris Devontae Adams and Austin Eckler, the only guys with gray hair on this team. So I like this team here, Chris. I like the build. I like the mix. I think it's going to be really, really talented. It's a very good team. Well done by you, Chris.
Yeah, I think this team is just going to be really tough to beat week in, week out. I could see this team being very consistent throughout the season, and the ability to navigate bye weeks as well. Plus, you factor in the upside as this team goes into the playoffs too, and I think it's got all the makings for a number one seed. So I really like it. I'm with you. I wouldn't do anything either. I think this team's just very quality, top to bottom.
All right, Chris, let me give you the rankings one last time. At 1, Chino Brown. 2 is It's All Ogre Now. 3, B Lynch. 4, Power Mark. 5, Can Guard Matt. 6 is XRP. 7 is HB89. 8 is Big Country. 9 is Nightmare on ALS Street. 10 is Go Buck Yourself. 11 is Rappy's Ledge. And 12 is Triple D Dub. It's a good league here, Chris. Well ranked by you. This looks like it's, like you said, it's got those tiers. There should be plenty of maneuverability in terms of trades with this team, this league. There should be no shortage of moves once everyone listens to this show. I think there's options for everybody. Everyone seems to have at least a direction. So, very, very solidly. We love looking at leagues like this. So, best of luck to everybody this season. We thank you guys for checking us out. Be sure to like and subscribe.